just ran into a couple different situations. You know, our lost option sales tax could be cut 20-some%. Our road use tax could be cut a bunch. Our tourism program is certainly being looked at. And so consequently, I sat down with Jacob here the other day and I said, you know, I just assume you've got this all figured out. And he said, well, I am going to give a report at the council meeting. So I know Jacob's been working on it. We're all concerned. Clark gave a good example of it. And so at this time, I want Jacob to come forward and share with the group exactly kind of what we're looking at or where we're at this stage of the game.
Yep. Okay, so like Mayor said, just want to address some of the revenue shortfalls that the city might be facing due to the COVID. And so first I want to go through what we might see in this fiscal year, and then some potentials for fiscal year 21, which starts July 1. So just talking about fiscal year 20, overall, based on my projections, I'm looking at, we're probably as a city seeing around a $240,000 shortfall, or I don't want to say shortfall, but lost revenues due to the coronavirus and just shutting down certain public facilities and certain public functions that the city offers. So I'll kind of go through some of the different departments or functions where I think we'll see some revenue loss, and we have already seen some revenue loss, just to kind of give you, Councilman, an idea of where we're at and where we're seeing some losses. So first area I want to talk about is the ambulance. The call volume has been down for the ambulance crew, and with call volume being down, revenues will also be down some. So I'm looking at potentially around $30,000 there of lost revenue just due to the call volume being down. Next area, the shelter house out at the pit. Obviously with events and gatherings not going on out there, probably won't have much out there through the rest of the summer, depending on group size and some of that. Like I said, a lot of this it's fluid, it's subject to change. You don't really know how this is all going to play out through the end of the summer and even through the end of June here. But out at the shelter house out there, probably looking at $5,000 in lost revenue. The outdoor swimming pool, I know Jason didn't really talk about potential open date on that yet. I think that's still, the governor has it closed through May 27th for sure. And so just predicting we'll probably lose some revenue there. So I have 30,000 of lost revenue there. And Jason might want to address potential opening.
I had to turn my mic back on. But the outdoor pool takes 2 weeks to get ready. Right now it hasn't been filled because it is closed according to state proclamation. So if we anticipate that it will be lifted the 27th or by the 27th, it will take 2 weeks to get it filled and chemical balanced. So could possibly be by mid-June.
Yep, so the 30,000 is basically figuring that it'll open mid-June. So if it doesn't open until, say, the end of June, then we'll lose more revenues, obviously, from that. But with that, I think we'll also see some offsetting cost savings and expenses because we won't be running it. So when you hear some of these numbers and think about them, some of them will have offsetting cost savings, but some of them will just be truly lost revenues. So then we have other facilities that the city rents out, out at the golf course, the clubhouse up there for events. And that one's a little hard to predict, but figuring 10 to 15,000. The golf course revenues themselves, those were down in April. It's kind of hard to predict if that was weather related or if it was coronavirus related. I know, Councilman, I've heard people say that it seems like it's pretty busy out there. So this one's, I'm guessing will be 30,000 low on that, just based on the lower amount in April that we saw, and projecting that
What was
out.
the figure on that?
30,000. Convention center, 25,000. Library, 3,000. Just they're not charging fees and stuff, from my understanding right now. So that's not a real big dollar amount. Local option sales tax, that is estimated once a year, and then they do monthly payments to us, and then they have like a true up. I think it's in August or September. So for fiscal year 20, those payments aren't projected to change. So revenue-wise, we'll be at where we were projected, but we will see an impact on that in fiscal year 21, probably especially when they do their true-up for us in August, September timeframe. And then road use tax, that is paid, my understanding is a month for the previous month. And so I'm projecting for fiscal year 20, maybe losing up to 100,000 in there. I did that based on our May and June payments, and I know we just got the May payment today, and it was actually only 10%-ish lower than normal, which I was thinking it was going to be quite a bit lower than that. So that might actually be high, depending on, we'll see what the June one looks like when it comes in. But
What are you based on that road use tax, how many? How much?
So I was thinking around a 50% decrease, and like I said, we only saw around a 10% decrease in our May payment, and 100,000 is what I was thinking for fiscal year
With a
20.
10%?
Yep. So that's kind of what we're looking at for 20. I did want to say, as far as revenues go for 20, considering it goes July 1 through June 30th, we had a pretty strong summer last year, and even going through the fall and the winter. So I think revenue-wise, I think we'll be pretty close to budget for fiscal year 20, even with the lost revenue from COVID. So I think we would have been a little bit over in projected revenues. And so the COVID has just kind of brought us back down to around where we were budgeted. I think for fiscal year 21, we'll see a little bit more impact. So, does anybody have questions on that?
Questions for Jacob?
Hey, Jacob Clark, just because of breakup, so your 100,000 on road use is your 10% or the 50%?
No, that was at 50%. So that,
Okay.
I mean, road use is around 100,000 a month. And so 10% lower, we were about
Okay.
10,000 low for June. But like I said, we'll have to, for May, so we'll have to see what June comes in at.
And then my last comment, Jacob, is, when you started your report, you filed the disclaimer that none of this is for sure. Well, what are we paying you for?
No, it's estimates. I mean,
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Gotcha.
All year round, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And so then for fiscal year 21, I don't think I'm going to go through each one, how much I'm projecting, unless you guys want. I'll just kind of give you an idea. of the total that I'm thinking right now, and this is kind of based on things being slow for sure through fall and kind of into the winter a little bit. It's not really accounting for anything for next summer, next spring. And a lot of it is going to be with that local option sales tax true up and catch up coming in September, October. So based on the numbers I ran, I'm looking at being around 600,000 short in revenues for fiscal year 21.
Just for clarity, you said 600 for 21, correct?
Correct, yeah.
Okay, okay, thank you.
And like I said, that could definitely be higher depending on how long this goes on. I don't know that it could be lower too.
Right.
Once again,
Well, the point is, at least you got a rough idea or pointed in the right direction as to roughly what we're looking at as far as the city of Lamar's is concerned going down the road. And now I think that's where what's important here. Does anybody else have any other questions for Jacob? Hearing none.
I do have one more thing then. So with that, I will submit the Iowa League of Cities. They're doing some research on lost revenues for cities, and so they have a survey for cities to fill out, and they're working with the National League of Cities to potentially get some federal funding through another stimulus package. So I will submit those numbers to their survey, and they will submit those to the National League and work some on potential funding for some of those shortfalls.
Okay, real good. I've got one last thing that I want to visit about, and that is going back to the assessors sign up and where we're at on that. Ladies and gentlemen, this is very, very important, talking about budgets for this next year. Immediately, it's very important to be a very big asset to this city as to get out and vote for the assessors program. As of May 18th,
Census.
or I mean census, I'm sorry.
Census.
I was trying to get that assessor's job up there to courthouse of the raise. The assessors standing is where it was as of the May 18th. The state of Iowa was at 66.4% of reporting. Plymouth County is sitting at 70.5%, and the city of Lamar's is at 70.6%. So I think so far we've done a pretty respectable job in getting the assessors' information back to them as to where they're at. I just been looking through the reports as to what's coming next, and in the process within the next couple of weeks, you're going to be able to have maybe a knock on the door just to drop off, in case you hasn't voted, the assessor's report that gives you an opportunity to go vote. There's many ways you can do it. If you're not full aware of how to do it, I know our library has offered to help people if they want to go online to vote. But even at 70%, we really want to push to get people out to fill their obligations on this one. Just a quick figure is that I remember back 10 years ago, and this goes by 10-year increments, but I remember back very vividly 10 years ago, as an example, we talk about the road use tax of fixing our streets in our town here. It goes by population in the road use tax program. And 10 years ago, that figure was based on $80 per person on the assessor's roll. as to how the road use facts figured it. And that $80 goes over each year for 10 years. So that's why it's important to get as many on that assessor's roll as we possibly can. And so this is what we're looking at, and we'd really like to encourage to keep this going to help get revenue back into the city. Any questions, I'd be most happy to answer. Thank you. Then motion made to adjourn, is there a second?
Second.
Motion made and second to adjourn, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Adjourned.